But before we do that, Bal, let's kind of talk quickly about
Sure.
some news stuff, because Nintendo recently announced that they were discontinuing the NES Classic, and there are also rumors from sources such as Eurogamer that there will be a Super Nintendo Classic by the end of the year as well. How do you feel about all this stuff? I feel like it's been a bit of a PR nightmare on Nintendo's end, quite honestly.
Yeah, it kind of has been because the I can't remember the reasoning they gave for discontinuing the NES Classic. I remember someone mentioning it. It was some sort of press statement that said something very inept and inappropriate.
It was like, we understand that people have had a hard time finding these. Also, by the way, we're not doing them anymore, so good luck finding
We're going
the
to help
last
you
ones.
in your struggle to find them by not doing them anymore. So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. When I was in New York at the Nintendo New York store, and they had one on display, and I'd not seen one before, and I sort of thought, that looks really great. I might, I'd be tempted, but ultimately there's not really enough NES games I'm massively into to warrant buying something like that. But then we talked about this at the time when the NES Classic was announced and came out, and we thought, oh, but what if they did a SNES one? And like these rumors, like we're about to talk about a number of SNES games we're very excited that we love, but the prospect of a SNES Classic, just a box with all those great games on it, like really appeals to me, like hugely.
It appeals to me a lot more, not only because I think the quality of the games on the Super Nintendo is generally higher, but also because there are significant ones which I don't have a good way to play right now, and I would like for it to be included in something like that. And I wonder about the price, if they're going to increase it because the value of Super Nintendo games they might hold higher, or if they will just reduce the number of games, say put 15 games as opposed to 30, because obviously, like, a value judgment, when you have something that is long and epic, like a Chrono Trigger versus Balloon Fight, for example, like, there is a big distinction there. I mean, even on the NES, you had the distinction between like Zelda and Final Fantasy and other kind of small games that didn't have as much to them. But I think the Super Nintendo kind of takes that up another step to some degree. So, yeah, I would be down for one. But here's the weird thing: is like what kind of position are Nintendo going to be in for the holidays, having the Switch and having the Super Nintendo Classic? I don't know, the message is going to be a little weird.
They might be trying to launch a virtual console on Switch at the same time. Like, how do
I feel like the virtual console comes before then, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to, I agree, but whatever way you cut it, there's some sort of clash between Super Nintendo games coming out on Switch and some sort of SNES Classic. Like, surely that...
There's a way that they can actually maybe solve this to some degree, which I don't know if they'd be up for, but if they put out this Super Nintendo Classic and they can't meet demand, there's going to be people not getting them, they could do something which alleviates that, in the sense of, what if they put out those exact same games as a bundle on Switch, either on a cartridge or you can download them from the virtual console, but give you the same package of games, but on the Switch as opposed to on this mini Super Nintendo.
It's nice, but come on, like, half the appeal of the NES Classic was the box and controller itself, and that for many people buying that system, they had already played, experienced, or even re-downloaded many of those games on platforms like the Wii U and the Wii, and it was just a case of, it's a really nice sort of gift, I don't know, Christmas gift, birthday gift, that is in one package with that actual tangible mini NES and a controller. Like, that's the appeal, partly to me, for something like the SNES Classic would be something like that. Like, not necessarily the fact that, because I already have access to all these games in some way, shape, or form. So, it's that tangible collector in me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really worked with Amiibo, but
no,
I guess
of course
they're not really tangible. I mean, they're tangible, but they don't really have any kind of benefit. Yeah, I guess, but I feel like I'm coming from the perspective of the Switch as a machine with classic games on it sounds much more appealing to me than the Wii U did, because of that beautiful screen and the idea of taking it everywhere. And the 3DS can obviously do that with some titles, but it was limited to the degree that you can only get Super Nintendo games if you have a new 3DS, right? So, like, the ability to have this grand library of fantastic games on the Switch, I think, is still appealing to a lot of people in the same way that the Super Nintendo Classic is.
Yeah, and I mean, I would, having said what I said, I would still prefer it on the Switch. Like, I'd still take that bundle if it came, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I would much rather not buy the Super Nintendo Classic and just buy a bundle of all those games on Switch if it were the same price, right? Like, that's what I would do. So that's why I think it's potentially a smart idea, because they could catch a lot of people that way and maybe not have as many people annoyed by the fact they couldn't get this little box.
Right.
So.
And like, I've already got loads of Super Nintendo games on my Wii U. I just want to be able to transfer them, please.
Yeah, God, please talk about that soon. Please tell us there's a way. God damn it. If you enjoyed this discussion and would like to hear more, consider subscribing to us on YouTube and following the podcast playlist. You can also find us on iTunes and various other places. Follow us on Twitter at TNL Podcast and email us thisnintendolife@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.